Let's get to the Sunday games. Started yesterday. Los Angeles Chargers beating the Baltimore Ravens 23-17. I think the story here is, of course, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens offense, they get slowed down until the fourth quarter. And then what the Chargers did defensively, 7 defensive backs on the majority of their snaps, a completely different look. Tony Romo was talking about it. I saw some of the numbers. We have some of the numbers, too, that came out after the game. You just don't see teams going with 4 defensive linemen and 7 defensive backs.
Yeah, well, that's so weird. It doesn't even have a name, right? There's no monetary value to attach to that. It's not nickel, dime. It's just...
It's below quarter.
Right.
Well, it's quarter.
What is that?
Quarter.
Quarter?
Quarter D.
Is it?
Yeah. That's what it's been in Madden for years, too.
Madden?
I think Belichick's run this before. But so the Chargers were legitimately putting... So they didn't change their scheme at all. So here's the interesting thing. They run cover 3. And essentially what cover 3 is doing, so you're playing the 3 deep zones, you have 4 underneath zones, but you have 8 guys in the box. You usually have your strong safety and an outside linebacker. They're what we call the overhang players. They're playing in the box, so you get that run, stop look. But the unique part about this is the Chargers took their 2 inside linebackers and made them safeties. It was generally Jaleel Adai and Adrian Phillips, who played legitimate linebacker. When you had Derwin James outside at strong safety, you had Desmond King outside playing strong safety.
Right.
7 defensive backs.
This wasn't a take a linebacker and put him down as a sort of dime linebacker position. This was we are replacing our linebackers with defensive backs.
Yeah, we're playing a 4-3 schematically.
Yeah.
But the 3 linebackers are going to be all safeties.
Right, we're just going to change who's doing it.
Or one's actually a corner. Desmond King. They had a corner playing safety.
This was exactly what we said heading into this game, which is what happens the first time a team gets a second look at this Ravens offense, which is what we're talking about here. Every single team they've played so far with this Lamar run-heavy offense, it's been the first time they've seen it. And when you have to see something for the first time, it changes everything you do. Because even if you watched it on tape and you've understood theoretically how to deal with it, it's different when it lines up in front of you and you have to think split seconds and you have to make those adjustments on the fly. And every single team, they've had problems because of that. The Chargers are the first team to get a second look at it, and we were saying, what is that going to do? Does that force Lamar Jackson to have to do something else if they figured out a way to slow down that run game? And that's exactly what happened. They had figured out a way to slow down the run game. Essentially, their game plan was to do exactly the same thing, only replace the linebackers with players Lamar can't outrun.
Which is interesting because if you're trying to stop a run-first team, you generally think, well, get more linebackers out there, get more guys who are adept at taking on blocks and all that stuff. But I think a big part of this, in stopping any run-heavy attack, the reason why Lamar Jackson run-heavy attack works is because he's the extra guy that you have to account for. You literally need 8 people in the box. So the way you account for that, because at some point he's going to get one-on-one and he might be able to make a guy miss and it's still tough to stop, the defensive line has to win. And to me, this is the biggest reason that the Chargers won. Schematically, it was fun and all to see all the safeties playing linebacker, and it was unique. And we'll talk about, will they actually do that against New England? Because those same guys could probably be better stopping the pass. But you have Melvin Ingram, who just straight dominated in the run game. Derwin James made a bunch of plays behind him. But as far as D-line goes, Darius Philon made a few plays. Melvin Ingram made a bunch of plays. Damian Square. Justin Jones comes in, has one of his best games of his young career. The defensive line for the Chargers just made a ton of plays against the run. They did not get blocked that well. And if you watch the film, those linebackers who are actually safeties were pretty clean most of the time. They didn't have a whole bunch of linemen getting to the second level, and that's where the risk comes in. Because if you have those 2 little safeties there, if you get a Marshall Yanda at the second level, you get those offensive linemen at the second level, they're going to get destroyed, and big run plays, can come about. But I thought the D-line for the Chargers was fantastic, and I think that's a big story there. But if you look at it schematically, they didn't do anything differently on the passing plays. It's cover 3. It was zone. Lamar just missed a ton of throws, and his pocket presence was essentially atrocious. Kept fumbling, and we charged him with 3 out of the 7 sacks where he either held the ball too long or drifted into pressure.
And that's the other story is the fumbles, is that this game started to get out of control because they kept fumbling the ball.
No, I think I had a quote about that.
Losing control of it.
I think I said that was what I think we have to go back and find out. I think on the preview podcast I said that's what would determine the outcome and why I picked the Chargers. Did you pick the Ravens still?
Yeah. Went with the home team.
Oh, that was silly.
Yeah, it didn't work out that well. This was the one that the closer towards the game I got, the less I liked the fact that I picked Baltimore.
Remember we said every game's a road game for the Chargers? It doesn't matter where they play.
Yeah, which apparently their record on the road and in Eastern time zones is insane this year.
Bucking the trend.
The Eastern time zone thing's not important. The distance travel, maybe, but apparently they're bucking that as well.
They got to do it again. They got to do it again next week.
But so the turnovers were a major issue, or fumbling the ball was a major issue. The Chargers bottled up that run game pretty effectively and did show them something different. And when you force Lamar Jackson to be a passing quarterback, he wasn't able to get it done for 3 quarters. Now, he turned it on a little bit towards the end. They got it close, but wasn't enough. And honestly, the one good thing is that John Harbaugh and the Ravens don't have access to social media during the game and didn't get to see the clamoring for Joe Flacco that was happening from like the second quarter onwards. Which is amazing, right? Which was growing in amplification and intensity on social media. They said, well, they've got to put Flacco in now. After halftime, we're going to say, Lamar, you get 1 drive to see if you settle down. Otherwise, Joe's going in the game. I honestly think that was almost entirely manufactured. I don't know that the Ravens were ever really considering doing that. And I don't even know if it registered that much with them. They've made this decision. Lamar is our quarterback. I don't think they were ever close to saying, Flacco, it's your time, son. Warm up.
I mean, I think the only time you would actually make that decision is maybe in the fourth quarter when it's like, all right, it's definitely, they know we're passing. We can't run our same game plan, but they were still within 2 scores at half. And then they were within 1 score at one point, right? So
I don't think they ever got anywhere near that point. I think that was 100% manufactured with social media hysteria, which is why they seemed kind of shocked by it after the game that people were bringing this up. Someone asked Flacco about it. He's like, no, I mean, don't even go there. It was never a thing. This is Lamar's team. That's fine. I'm just, and he almost got it done, whatever.
And Lamar, he made those nice, pretty nice throws in the fourth quarter. But again, I think this sums him up, right?
Yes.
He missed so many for 3 quarters. You never know. Essentially, you never know when the misses are going to happen. In this game, they happened for the first 3 quarters, essentially. Bad decisions and just general inaccuracy. But even the touchdown that Crabtree scored behind Casey Hayward, that was just a weird play by Casey Hayward, who just kind of stopped and nice throw to hit Crabtree on the deep ball, and then he looped that one over Derwin, who took a shot and
that's one
mistimed it.
Yeah, it goes down as this incredible play, and yet is one of those plays that it's so close to being terrible. It's like those Kirk Cousins plays we talked about before, where it's like, okay, it's ended up great, but honestly, that might be a worse play than it is a good one when you look at it. This was such a floated. It was up there for an eternity, and if the defensive back just plays it a little bit better, it's a pick.
Right.
But so I think that final quarter was so important for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens this offseason, not because it got them back into the game or because they had a chance to win it, but because if he had completely been terrible, if he had been in the fourth quarter the same way as he was for the first 3, they would have gone the entire offseason with, all right, Lamar is now our quarterback. Now every team is going to have seen him before. Every team is going to be the second year. They're going to know how to defend him. And the only evidence we have so far says that when that happens, he can't play. That would have been a nightmare for this team to have to deal with in the offseason.
There's still a little bit of that, though.
There is, but at least now they can point to it and say, okay, it just took him a while. He got warmed up by the fourth quarter, and he can do it. Okay, it's not, it's development. It's all a journey, Steve. We're all just getting better one step at a time.
Yes.
And developing. That way they can at least say that now. If he just stunk for 4 quarters, that would have been a really tough sell for the entire offseason.
If you look at it, the way that what the Chargers did defensively, right? Lamar had 4 design carries for 8 yards. 4 designed for 8 yards, and then 4 scrambles for 46 yards. So it's usually the reverse. He usually scrambles a couple times, picks up some plays, but it's usually the design game where it's like 18 carries for 90 yards and all that.
So it's the design game, again, with these speedy players that the Chargers were able to shut down.
That they completely shut down due to their defensive line. And then if the defensive line wasn't doing it, it was the speed of Derwin James setting the edge and Adrian Phillips and some of their linebackers. And then Gus Edwards, too. He usually benefits from the extra attention that Lamar gets and the good run blocking from the offensive line that wasn't there this particular week. Gus Edwards goes 8 carries for 23 yards. He only forced 1 missed tackle on his own. So you completely shut down, and then Kenneth Dixon in there, 6 carries for 13, completely shut down the designed running game. They had 90 rushing yards total. The Ravens, 46 of which came on Lamar scrambles. So the game plan was fantastic for the Chargers, but I think more so the execution of it and just how well they played up front was beautiful. We'll look forward to the Chargers-Patriots matchup, but again, I actually do wonder if a 7 defensive back look. It usually throws 7 defensive backs out there against pass-heavy offenses, teams you want to stop the pass against. That's New England. They want to pass the ball, so I actually wonder if they're going to do this next week. We'll talk about that later in the week.
The really interesting thing about this, though, is that while the Chargers did have this new game plan and did have better success against the Ravens, this game for a large period of time kind of went the same way as it did the first game. The only difference being, so there were a couple of differences. One, they had more success against the Ravens and they forced some turnovers. 2, the Chargers really struggled on offense, but they didn't keep having the penalty that negated third down conversions. So remember the first game, they were just about converting, and then every time they did, they'd have a holding penalty, and that's the drive over.
Right.
Like when you are the Ravens defense, essentially what I'm saying is killed Phillip Rivers almost to the same degree as they did the first time. It's just that instead of having their third down conversions negated, they actually converted them this time and just about kept their head above water enough to keep chipping over field goals.
Yeah, they pressured Phillip Rivers on 17 out of 35 dropbacks, and they also, that's actual pressure, getting to him.
Right.
Passer rating of 52.1, and they also blitzed him on 17 of 35 dropbacks. So they got after him, a bunch of 0 blitzes too. Rivers hit that one nice
and that's just slightly lower than the percentage the first time. It was like 55% the first time, and this is 48. So it's in the same ballpark. It's just that the Chargers were able to stop shooting themselves in the foot this time enough to put up some points. And really, this is, again, it's like the kind of Achilles heel of this type of offense is that when you get down, you have to change the game plan.
Right.
Because
that's why people were calling for Flacco.
Right.
And look, Lamar played pretty well in the fourth quarter. I mean, his grade could have been much worse if he didn't start making a few throws.
It's like the idea that the run and shoot was a bad system because when you got up and you needed to run the ball in the fourth quarter, they couldn't do that.
Right.
This is the sort of the idea. It's the same thing in reverse. It's this run offense is really interesting. It's good when it works, and it's capable of limiting these high-octane shootout offenses. But if you get down 2 scores, what do you do?
But if you look at the Ravens, though, too, they played well defensively.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They had 2.7 yards per attempt against them and 5 yards per attempt in the passing game against them. Phillip Rivers played better than the numbers would show, but the Ravens did a really nice job cracking down in the red zone, cracking down in scoring territory. They kept the Ravens in the game. And again, this has always been our biggest, this is what we've been saying all year, is that the Ravens have a really good defense, the Bears have a really good defense, which we'll talk about, but if the offense, it still comes down to the offense needing to make plays more importantly.
One more reason that the running offense and needing to score quickly becomes a problem now more than ever is because the onside kick has been essentially neutered.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
You can't get an onside kick anymore. So it was never exactly a high probability prospect, but it was like 20% before. Now they've changed it. It's like under 8%, I think. You're not getting the onside. So you need to score quickly enough that you can't. The clock becomes a real problem.
Then you have to kick it deep
because
and make
this idea of we just need 2 scores. We need the touchdown. We need the onside. We need another touchdown. Like the onside is not happening.
Were injuries happening? Injuries were happening on deep kickoffs, not onside kicks, right? There's got to be a way to just say, look, old school. You declare that you have a. There's no surprise onside kicks where the rules change.
I think,
but for a designated onside kick, it's old school rules. You just do it.
The Schiano rule is coming, right? They're eliminating the kickoff. They're going to eliminate the onside. The Schiano thing is the only logical conclusion to all of this. And I think that was, you get like 4th and 15 from your own 35. So you get the ball in the 35, you make it past midfield on one play, you get the ball back, essentially. If you don't, the other team does.
Interesting.
I mean, I honestly, whatever. That's probably the easiest way of doing it.
It's more football plays, at least.
Right. And if they're eliminating the kickoff, that's basically the only thing you're left with, right?
Yeah.
You've got to create some kind of random scenario in order to get you the ball back or not. And that seems as good a one as any. But my point
you
is,
have 2 guys sprint to go get the ball on the ground.
like the XFL that worked
style.
out well. That's a real good one for player safety.
But the kicking team has to be starting from further back. You have to make
back?
Yeah. Because you can't make it a 50-50 proposition to get the ball back.
Why not?
You got to make it about 20%, like the old kickoff.
Anyway, my point is that you need to actually score quicker now because you're not getting the outside. You can't get those rapid fire multiple scores.